On this episode of On the Mic with Mike and Moose.
The views of Mike and Moose do not necessarily reflect the views of our respective employers, churches, or communities. Over the course of our discussion, we may speak on race, religion, politics, sex, and other subjects that might be uncomfortable for others to hear. Viewer listener discretion is advised. So, Mike, kind of going back on and going into part two of what we want to talk about, and this is about being kind but not necessarily being nice.
Yeah.
Um, you and I are not political. We don't like politics. I
All
mean,
political all the way. Yep.
I mean, I really dislike it because of the way that it just turns people into monsters.
Yeah.
And I feel like people have become bold in the way in which they do things, almost like it's 1950 or
Yeah.
1960. And the you just kind of see what's going on in the news. You see, you see somebody that takes. I don't want to get, like I said, I don't want to get too political in this, but there's statistics out there under when Democrats, when like Barack Obama and Joe Biden were president, that show the amount of deportations that happened actually increased, be more than what has happened during the Trump administration.
Yeah.
Um, the thing about it is like when you throw that label on those guys, and you throw the label on President Trump, and throw the label on President Obama and President Biden, the people who see that Republican label thrown on Trump and the way that Trump, kind of handles himself, it's like, well, he's being this way, so I can be this way, and it turns out to be
Yeah.
nasty.
Yeah.
I mean, I politically speaking, I would consider myself a moderate conservative.
Yeah.
Um, I I'm very socially aware of what's going on, and I've always been very socially aware of what's going on. And I do think that there's a lot of injustices that come with people who don't look like me.
Yeah.
Um, and so I've always kind of been, what can I do? What can I do? What I've always kind of figured out is that I can do one thing in this world that's not going to cost me a dime, is be kind to somebody.
That's it.
You know, a lot of times people are not here to raise Cain and cause havoc. I work in a space in which we embrace everybody
Yeah.
because everybody needs health care. And the political climate just, I mean, I just remember thinking back and after the 20, leading up to the 2016 election, there was some individuals that I came across that were probably that little mini micro generation between my grandparents and my parents.
Yeah.
So they were probably 10 to 15 years older than my dad and my mom, and probably 10 to 15 years younger than my grandmother. So maybe 25, 30 years,
Yeah.
you know. And I remember somebody asking me about my clinic and if we saw Mexicans,
Yeah.
because one of the things that you will see from the bigoted people in this area is they don't say Hispanic, they don't say Latino, they don't say Venezuelan or Costa Rican or Salvadoran.
That's right.
Everybody is a Mexican.
Yep. That's it. They
And
speak Mexican too.
it bothers me. But I
Yeah.
mean, to me, the equivalent of that would be somebody from Europe talking to somebody from, Leeds, Alabama, and calling them a Yankee, calling them a Yank.
Yeah.
And just think about how somebody from Podunk, Alabama, a white person from Podunk, Alabama, you call them a Yankee, and
Yeah.
how upsetting that would be to them. It's the same way. But I remember talking to this lady, and she said, "Do you see Mexicans at your clinic?" I said, "Ma'am, I provide health care at our clinic. I don't ask where they're from. I don't ask what their status is. I ask, do you qualify for my clinic, and do you need to see a doctor?"
Yep.
And she looked at me and said, "Well, I can't wait till President Trump comes in because he's going to send all those Mexicans you're seeing back to Mexico."
Oh man, that's messed up.
And just the look on my face. I'm sure that I showed it on my face. It was just like, really?
I bet she was a Christian.
You would get that, and then and she was probably the people. So a lot of the people that we see at our clinic, they're your laborers. They do the landscaping, they do construction, they work in
Yeah.
they work in the restaurants. I mean, there's a lot of our patients that are laborers. They do cleaning. They have cleaning services, and so these people who talk bad about this subset of people are using their services.
Yeah. And
So
they
they're
want to
okay.
use their services, and they
They're
want
okay.
their cheap version of it. They don't want to pay, and so they want their cheap version of what they can do because they see that they would take less for it and they want it, but then they'll talk bad about it.
Yeah, they're okay with taking the services.
Oh yeah,
They're not okay with the person
send them
providing the
back.
service. There's a saying that one of my teachers told me or said in a class one day, and this was about the Civil War.
Yeah.
About the African American culture. He said in the South they loved the individual but hated the race. But in the North, they hated the individual but loved the race.
Yeah.
I talked about in the first part of this episode about how there's racism everywhere.
It
This
is.
is not just happening in the United States. It's not just happening in the South.
No, it's happened
If you go
everywhere.
to Chicago, or if you go to Detroit, if you go to New York, if the last, like we mentioned it before, I think the last public school system to integrate in the U.S. was Boston.
Wow. That's wild.
And now you think about Massachusetts. Massachusetts is about as liberal as you can get. I mean,
Yeah.
it's politically speaking.
We have a good friend from Mass. If she's watching this, Alex, we love him.
Well, she's from Portugal. She just happens to live
From she lives in Mass. There you go. Yeah, and that's what's so. My daughter is Mexican, right? My daughter-in-law, daughter-in-love, as because we love her like she's our own, and we have seen both legal and illegal people. We have people at our church that are both legal and illegal. And the ones that are illegal, if we want to quote unquote call it, are the dreamers, as we would call it.
DACA.
Yeah, but that's not covering them. That people that could be a different story for another day.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe what has happened. So before y'all label me, what is Mike? What is he? I'm an independent conservative. Okay. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I removed myself from both parties. I began as a Democrat. That's what my parents were. They were Southern Democrat.
Yellow dogs.
Yeah, yellow dogs. And then I became a conservative Republican, and then I saw the faults in the Republican Party. I pulled back. I'm an independent. You can go down to the office and look at it. I'm an independent conservative, leaning libertarian. I lean more to the libertarian, more the moderate when it comes to those types of things. Like, for instance, and I know I'm going to get some hate. By the way, my email address is pastormikepickett@gmail.com if you need to send me anything. I believe one of the things that has made racism worse is not President Trump. Hear that? But is MAGA. I believe that terminology, which was supposed to be for good, make America great again, I believe has slowly turned into a cultish like thing. Now, are there some good MAGA people? Of course there are. They don't know what's going on, but there's some that worship MAGA over Jesus Christ. And I've got them in my family. And they say, well, are you liberal? I said, by no means, I'm not liberal. I'm
Yeah,
conservative.
I want to ask you this, Mike, and I run into this a lot.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of friends, past friends, before I came back to the church,
Yeah.
who would be what you would call like a diehard left wing liberal.
Yeah.
And now that I'm back in the church, I do have friends who are, extremely conservative right wing.
Yeah.
But do you ever run into into the assumption from people like my old friends almost think that I'm too conservative?
Yeah.
Then my right wing friends think I'm too liberal.
Yeah.
It's like you can't and that's what I love about my outlook on life is I don't those extremes
Yeah.
have not I don't fit in one of those extremes. But I
Moose.
do catch some flack for it because it's like, well, you go to church. My left wing friends, you go to church.
Yeah.
And so and you not only do you go to church, you go to a Southern Baptist church. I don't go to
Yeah.
Episcopalian church or I don't go to United Methodist church. I go to Southern Baptist church, which is more on the right wing side.
Yeah.
And then I've got people that I know from our church that when I say I've read the Communist Manifesto or I've read different surahs of the Quran.
Yeah.
And they say, why would you do that? Or why would you know a person that was like this? And my response to them is, how can I reach them? How can I be an influence on somebody who's lost if nobody's showing them any sort of interest? I'm not going to. I'm not one of those type of people that will proselytize. Is that how you say, did I say that right?
Yeah.
Proselytize. I'm not going to be one of those types of people that goes out and just browbeat somebody with the Bible, saying you got to repent, fire and brimstone. But I'm going to be an influence. They're going to see
Yeah.
that I'm doing stuff, for Jesus.
So my problem, Moose, that I see, and I've been labeled that as well. You're too liberal. You're too conservative on both sides. You've been in my live. You're one of my moderators in there. One of the biggest things. Oh, you voted for Trump, didn't you? I mean, one of the very first things that they'll put in there, or they'll put a political statement, and we don't get political in there.
I go,
And you're like, bloop, we're getting you out of here. We're getting you out of here.
I'm the meme mod, is what I've.
Yeah. And Emma, you've trained Emma. Emma's become that meme mod too. She doesn't play anymore. But with that being said, out of both sides, the ones that are completely left wing, they do have some hate towards those on the right side. But when I see some on the right side, they have vitriol, like wanting people to go to hell type of stuff, wanting people to not exist type of stuff.
I think when you look at it though from a lot from a bigger sense, when you're looking at the extremes,
Yeah, it's bad.
It's like that on both sides. Like I deleted a guy or I muted a guy on your live the other day, and he said you can pray for anybody but Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Last night or the night before.
That's messed up. Yeah, both sides.
You said I want you to vote for. I want you to pray for anybody but Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I said, no, we're not going to do that. And that's from somebody from the left. And then
yeah.
I think in our political climate, that's the biggest issue we have is, and I had this discussion with my pastor. And I don't know if my pastor liked it or not when we had this discussion, but I remember being a kid. The first election that I remember was the '88 election.
Yeah.
So, now I remember Ronald Reagan being president.
Yeah.
But the first election I remember was
Bush
versus Dukakis. Okay.
Yep.
And George Bush was president. I remember the first Iraq.
Read my lips.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but the Iraq War.
Yep.
I remember old Ross Perot.
Yep.
And Clinton and Bush going to 92. Of course, I'm in high school for the 96 election. You're graduated high school. You're about to graduate high school.
About to, yeah.
So you got, that was Clinton versus Dole. Then we had the Hanging Chad incident.
Yep.
It wasn't until 2008 that you really start. I feel like in my lifetime that I started seeing people be nasty about an elect. Like it was like once the thought that a black person or a half black person, however you want to categorize Barack Obama was, it was like it was on. Like it was just like, okay, now we're going to quit being decent to each other.
Oh yeah, it
But
got really bad, and this was on all sides, left, right,
yeah,
up, down. It didn't matter. It was getting rough, and you had people whom I used to love to listen to. God rest his soul, and I hope he got his life, connected with Jesus. But I used to be an avid Rush Limbaugh uh,
mm-hmm.
listener, and Sean Hannity, and all those different conservative. What's his name? Glenn Beck.
Mm-hmm.
That used to be what I ingested, and I'm going to be honest with you, and that's all I know how to be. I injected more of them into my lifestyle during that time than I did the Bible and preaching. And I was a pastor because
Yeah.
I had become so political because I thought America had been kidnapped.
Mm-hmm.
And bro, I was wrong. I was one of those guys in 2008, not from a racist standpoint, but from a political standpoint. Y'all, I used to be one of the most political people. If you get back on my Facebook in 2008 to 2016, you would say, I don't want to be around Mike. I was that guy.
See,
But
I've never been that person.
yeah, I wish I wasn't, but I was that guy. And I'm brave enough to say it out loud. And I wish I could go back and talk to him and say, you know how you're hurting your witness, bro? Be quiet. You know how you're doing this? Be quiet.
You know, even at that point, I had been away from the church going into the '08 election for about 4 or 5 years at that point.
Yeah.
And one of my friends, she's a professor down at the University of Alabama, and her specialty is rhetoric. She's got a PhD in political communication or whatever the equivalent was, and so she does a lot of stuff with elections and things now. She's a big politic person.
Yeah.
I remember telling her, coming up leading up to election, we're in grad school, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm voting for Barack Obama or if I'm voting for John McCain.
Yeah.
And because John McCain, and I don't have a problem with her personally, but it was for me, it was one of the worst selections of a vice presidential candidate when he chose Sarah Palin.
Oh, yeah.
And um, for me personally, to go into the '08 election, I was a big Tim Pawlenty fan. I like what was going on in Minnesota at the time. He was a Republican governor, and I just like some of the stuff he said. And I was like, man, you got to go somewhere where you can get some electoral votes, right? You don't go to Alaska where there's 3 electoral votes and they're all gonna be ready either way. And so I
Yeah.
just remember thinking, man, why did he do this? And I just remember talking about, talking to Cynthia about that, and we we did 8 years with Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Of course, 8 years of build up, and then Trump got his 4 years, then Biden got his 4 years, and I can talk good and bad about every single president we've had. I just think we got past common decency, and I wish we could go back to common decency, and that's my
Thank
biggest issue.
Yeah.
Is in 20, and this is another story I kind of that way we can kind of end on this. 2017, probably the first or second week of the year, I have a employee with me. She's got all her papers. She's good. She was good. I did I-9. We're good with her, but she's from Venezuela. She has a very thick accent. She no longer works for me. She's moved on to a different part of the country. But she was having issues with this lady, and the lady wasn't her. It wasn't even a patient. The lady was the sister of a patient. And finally, my employee said, "Hey, I need you to talk to this lady because I've always had this stance at my clinic that if somebody is treating you nasty on the phone, I want you to take this phone and and I want you to hang it up.
Yeah.
And this lady kept going on and on, and she says, Justin, she says, can you handle this? I said, sure, transfer it over. The first thing out of that lady's mouth was, I'm so glad I'm talking to you. I'm so sick and tired of talking to that Mexican.
Oh, wow. I would have hung up.
Well, the lady got a do not contact anymore letter, and if that person continued to contact us like that, then we were going to have to try to find her sibling a new place to be seen with a doctor.
Yeah.
Because there's consequences for the way you act towards people. You can
Yeah.
be kind towards people, but you don't necessarily have to be nice. And that, I've been talking about that. I you see you see it. You see it in your lives. People are looking for a handout.
Yeah. Every time.
And you can say, I feel bad. I'm sorry that you're going through this. And you can be kind. You can be empathetic, or you can be sympathetic to whatever they're going through. But you're not made of money.
No.
And sometimes you just have to say no. And
It
that's
ma-
where the being kind versus being nice comes in. You're being kind to them, but you're not necessarily being nice, because if you're nice all the time, if you give that $10 to this person, and the next person's going to want 20, the next person's going to want 25, and so at some point you have to sit there and cut things off.
Yeah. Well, this
And
will make you laugh, Moose. In TikTok, and you go live too. People throw gifts at you, right?
right,
Well, people think, well, there was a lot of gifts thrown. Many times when all those gifts have been thrown and TikTok gets their share, you make maybe $9 to $10, maybe on a good night. And people are thinking, because they see all these different things pop up, that you just probably made $200 or $300.
you mean like a Zeus?
Now that one's different. That one's different. That was different. That Mario, yeah, that was different. But usually, people will see that and say, "I need 1,200 to pay my rent." I said, "I need 1,600 to pay mine. Will you pay some of mine?
Right.
Because I don't have money to send you $1,200. Now I
No.
can send you a bag of groceries,
Right.
and even in today's economy, when I tell people I can help them with groceries and stuff, I'm like, I need to know your list, because there's some things that I am going to get and some things I
Right.
will not get.
I'm not buying you smokes or alcohol.
No, I'm not doing that, and I'm not buying you Little Debbie's. I'm sorry. I'll buy you food.
Yeah.
And if you want to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, if you want to get chips, I'll buy those. But I'm not going to let you go to town on Little Debbie's and do it that way. But and I'm not trying to be a person that's trying to be a micromanager, but bro, I've had people that I've sent stuff to before, not just on TikTok, but other things, and they'll call me up and say, "Well, I don't like the color of the the thing you sent me." And I'm like, "Does it work?" They're like, "Yeah, but I don't like the color." I said, "Well, God bless you. You can consider yourself not part of this anymore, and I hope you have a blessed life." And they got mad because literally it was a different type of product that did the same thing.
Right.
But we've created that. We have, in today's society and culture, have created an entitlement, and we've done it by classisms. Uh, I believe we have slowly turned into where England was in the late 1819, early 1900s. We're seeing classism come into America, and entitlement here. We're seeing first, second, third class, like you saw in the Titanic. I'm a history buff, and I believe we're seeing that happening now. And it's happened because of some governmental things that have been put into place, and not good stuff. And, you know, it's crazy. Like right now in our denomination, we have a lot of Latino pastors. Well, do you know that in our denomination alone, and this is a very low part of that, probably about 25% of our pastors, probably more, I'm going low, will not be able to stay in America because of everything going on. And they've done things the right way. But because of everything else that's going on, paperwork is not being able to be processed.
Right.
And so people who don't have the paperwork processed and the date comes, it's over with. So we have pastors who have large ministries that could be pushed back out. And people have said, well, you can't look at it case by case. It's a blanket. No, you can't. You have to, and that's where you talk about being nice and kind and the difference. We've got to learn that even though the law is on the books and we trust God and we want to follow the law of the land, does not mean it removes us from being kind to someone. One of the best examples, Moose, if you remember, speaking about McCain and Obama, you probably remember this. McCain was having a town hall, and there was a lady, an older lady, that got the microphone. Well, I don't want to see Obama in there because he's one of them Arabs. And he said, no, ma'am, he's not an Arab. He's a Christian, loves you, And McCain, instead of, it could have been different with if somebody else would have been in there. But McCain said, no, ma'am, he's a good guy. We don't agree. There's some key issues we really do not agree on, but he's a good guy. That was the last common decency thing that we saw in politics right there in 2008.
Yeah. Well, good deal. Well, I think this is a good discussion. It's a hard discussion, tough discussion. But you want to take us out and kind of do our little spiel for us?
Yes. Thank you for watching On the Mic with Mike and Moose today. We're so thankful that you stopped by. Hey, you can catch us on all the different platforms, Podbean, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. We are also on Facebook as well. Soon, coming very soon, we're going to do Mike and Moose, On the Mic with Mike and Moose live on TikTok and YouTube. But we're trying to find our ways to do that, to where we can have panel discussions where people can come in, drop us questions. We can discuss them right then, right there. And we're looking forward to that. So please, please, please send this to a friend, because true friends share. And if you remember what Mr. Rogers said, sharing is what? Caring. So share it out. Let it be a part of. But until next time, understand this, that no matter what you've done, no matter where you've been, Jesus loves you, and he is running to you today.
And like I usually do with my TikToks, I just want to let you know, praying for you. Have a great
Peace
day.
out,
God
Girl
bless.
Scout.